the connection isn't good? Is the connection not good on
You keep
that?
freezing.
Okay.
It freezes periodically. Is it me?
Then Shlosh Shmei Hagbala, there's no.
Is that the case for you, Hinda? Is it also freezing?
I can hear everything.
Yom HaMiyuchas.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to also disconnect trying to connect the.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Oh, okay.
The sound comes through, but the picture.
Okay.
I don't remember.
You see, Rob, when we don't hear clearly, it affords us the excuse when we flunk the test for Udat Smicha, we can always say the technology didn't work well, so we're not responsible.
So on that note, that we're covered now for that.
Probably something to pull a day without its own.
All right. What we're going to do right now is finish up Reish Pei Vav. Sorry, Reish Pei Hey, and then we will begin Reish Pei Vav. And of course, how fitting on the day that today is Rosh Chodesh, Chodesh Tova, of course, everybody, that we will learn some of the laws of Musaf on a day in which we recite Musaf. Of course, we're going to talk about the Shabbos Musaf in particular, but the laws of Musaf on Shabbos, there are many. There aren't many differences in terms of the laws of when you engage in the davening of Musaf, etc. As a Rosh Chodesh, for example, there are some unique pieces of Shabbos Musaf as opposed to Rosh Chodesh, but. Anyways, let's finish first Reish Pei Hey about Shnai Mikra Ve'echad Targum. The last thing we had seen last time was the Sivav. The Lamdei Tinokos Ein Tzrichen Lachzor V'Likros HaParsha B'Shabbos, that teacher, school teachers, Torah teachers of children don't need to go back and read the parsha because the presumption is, as the Mishnah Berurah, we read this Mishnah Berurah, I believe, at the end of last week. But if not, please let me know. But in Tezvayin, he says that in those days that are being referred to by the Shulchan Aruch, they would learn the Mikra for sure at least twice with the kids every week, and then they would explain it. So it's like they were the Targum themselves. So in doing so, they had fulfilled their obligation. Or at least, at the very least, they fulfilled the Shnai Mikra part, because of course they reviewed the parsha twice in the text, and then all that was left for the mechanchim to do, for the educators to do, was to do the targum on their own. Presumably, I guess that whatever explanation they gave to the kids wasn't enough of a targum. Sorry, there's machlokas, I think, on this one. The first opinion that we saw here in the Mishnah Berurah was that they were yotze also the targum because they explained it to the kids, and therefore they're good. Targum, good to go. They translate, but also the way he explains it here. Let's read it. Tezline. They learn the Perish HaMikra with the kids.
Exactly. They don't say HaMikra, they say Perish.
The Perish HaMikra with the kids. Of course, that the Gam means like they also read the text itself, of course. If they were just translating the words, right? That doesn't get you the Targum. That you still get your two mikras. You still get your 2 times reading the text. For sure that a good teacher reads the text with the kid twice. That's what a good teacher does.
So, beyond say the Targum, what kind of Targum are they teaching to the kids?
So anything that goes into depth of explaining beyond the simple translation of the text. So that's why as we said previously, Rashi of course fulfills it. But if you learn Rashbam, you learn any of these classical mefarshim on the text, which every pasuk they're giving you something, or even if they don't give you every pasuk, some Rashi doesn't give you every pasuk something, but they're giving you the Medrash Chazal, or they're giving you something beyond just a translation. If you read the English JPS translation of the text, that's probably not a fulfillment of Targum. That is an attempt to translate the text accurately, which there's a value in that.
Yeah.
But it's important also to get some deeper learning on the text.
I would assume, this is really based on whether or not you have to have kavanah for a mitzvah, right? Meaning, like, of course they are teaching, but isn't this like a much bigger issue where like you have to have kavana for doing a mitzvah, as opposed to if you're doing it. As opposed to if you're just saying it as a teacher, right? It's very different. So I presume
Well,
it's not based on
I
that.
presume that this is also because they were reviewing the parsha. This is the parsha Sashavua here, so they might not be thinking Shnei Mikra, but like, I'm doing the parsha this week. I'm teaching the parsha, right? On Fridays with the younger kids, I do parsha in school. Like, of course, I know it's this week's parsha. So that's I'm chazering the parsha.
Nice to know there was a time.
Where they would do this with the kids.
Where every week the kids.
The kids did Shnei Mikra, at least. Targum, I don't know,
By
but
the way,
they got the Targum from the Rebbe.
You're talking about like a nursery school.
Tinokos. What do they mean by Tinokos?
Yeah, I'm not sure that Tinokos is like, they're thinking 3 and 4 years old, like, I don't know. Not sure if there's any like, it's not like Tinokos.
in the Rambam.
Oh, and?
And he says that depending on the age of the child, 6 or 7 is when you bring the kid to school.
Okay, so we're probably talking,
And teaching them Torah, Tzika, Lolo, Moshe.
correct, you start to,
Right.
introduce it.
In Pirkei Avos, there is a, they tell you at 5 years old you do this, at 10 years
So
old.
that's
you do
right.
that,
But
at 15.
But an excuse, that let's say when they excuse how can you use electricity in Israel, and there might be a Jew who's working on Shabbos to generate it.
Right.
Doesn't care, is that he's a tinoch, he doesn't know better.
It's
So,
right.
he's an adult, he's a tinoch, so we are these kids who don't really know it.
Right, so that's one of my questions is like, does Tino, like, we use Tino, because like, yeah, little baby, right? The baby next door probably is about to have a bris. These are kids who are probably like the first, second, third grade, kind of, the way we think of kids.
Someone who's still nursing, that's.
Right, Yonek,
But
right.
it seems in that thing, if you're.
Tino
you don't
Shenishba,
know.
right,
Probably it's a bad-
yeah, so I don't think you're talking about 3 or 4 years. They have to be able to have some more
Someone who's still
knowledge who
dependent- Someone who's still dependent on a parent.
That's right. Yeah. All right. So, and then the last part here, it says, if you just do the text with the kids, then that kind of mechanech needs to do the targum on his own at a different time. And then the last point the Mishnah Berurah made here about this was that about the Malam de Tinokos, which was a side point, but nonetheless an interesting one in your Zion, which was that, and this we did mention last week, so this is just review. That we learned from here, meaning the laning truck. They didn't lane. The Rebbe's didn't get up there. The Mechanchim and they didn't lane it for the kids. You're teaching it. When you teach it, you don't necessarily aim the whole thing. The truth is, like when I taught Chumash last year to Orly's grade last year, I laned the truck. And I actually always taught them, like, when we stopped in the middle of, there's that nachta, I taught them at nachta, I said, stop, and you translate. We are at a breaking point here. So I actually made a point of laning, but I can't imagine that I didn't, by the way, I had a Rebbe when I was in 2nd grade, the first time I learned Chumash. It was a very chanty tune, which I think was a very classic way to learn. It was very chanty, kind of, it wasn't the trup, it was like, you do and you explain and you do and you explain. It wasn't the laning. So the laning trup is not ma'ake for the mitzvah Shnei Mikra Targum. Though if you want to lane, I actually think it's very nice because not just you teach the kids, but I think even for yourself, because there is something to be said about the trup can give us some meaning. Like where you break and where you pause phrases. It's extra, but at the end of the day here, we learned that you don't need it. Simeon, go ahead.
It also doesn't that.
Yes, I wanted to suggest something, and I wonder if it's correct. The words of tinokos doesn't necessarily mean a 2-year-old. It means an individual below the age of religious majority that does not necessarily have the chiyuv of doing the Shnaya Mikra and Echad Targum upon him.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's not talking about a baby, the way we think about a baby. It's the school-age child. Again, is it 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade? Usually when we think of children all the way up who are close to bar bat mitzvah, we would refer to them more often as a katan or a ktana than a t. But this is also a title. This person's his profession is malam de tinokos. Like that's almost like think about it as that's your job title on your resume. In those days, you would have written Melam de Tinokos. So, you're not talking about the 2-3-year-olds. I agree with you. Okay, let's go to Zion now. In the Mishnah, in the Shulchan Aruch. Let's close out our Siman. Ein sarich likros parashas Yom Tov. Okay, the Mechaber ends by saying you don't need to read the parasha of the Yom Tov. So, how fitting that this week it's Shavuos. What do we read on Shavuos? So we read the story from Parashas Yisro. And in Chutz La'aretz, we have to also read Kol B'chor the next day. In the Eretz Yisrael, there's no such thing as Kol B'chor. You know what they're doing? Reading on the second day of Shavuos? They're reading Naso, and we're going to be a parsha behind them after this week. So we'll have to get a double parsha later on in the summer as a result of this. Yeah, because they have the same they have the same halachas as we have in terms of the restrictions. And so, anyways, what we have here is there's no obligation to read the parsha for the Yom Tov that's coming up. And by the way, that is actually very much apropos as I think about it, because here we're not going to be learning a parsha this Shabbos, right? So what do we do with Shnai Mikra this week? So this is the week that the people who do Shnai Mikra Targum take a vacation, right? Oh, for Naso. So you get started now. So the truth is, based on what we've learned, you probably could already say that you could start Naso because we laid it at Shabbos Mincha, and the Tzibur is up to Naso. So you actually can take advantage of the fact that you probably have extra time this next week to get a head start on Naso. Though much of Naso is where the psukim really add up are a lot of the repetitive psukim. So the names change, but the gift of the Mishkan.
But if you look at it carefully, they're not repetitive.
The first day is different.
The reason why I know that is because
You lay in the Chanukah laning. You do the Chanukah laning?
No, my grandson's
Naso. That's right.
Was Naso.
That's right, Kobe.
And each Nasi is a little bit different.
Okay. We got to pay closer attention, I guess.
Got a lot of work this week.
Yeah. All right. So that's what the Mechaber says. Let's take a look at Yud Ches in the Mishnah Berurah. Ein sarich rotze lomar she'ein sarich likros la'atzmo shnai mikra ve'echad targum. He doesn't have to read it on his own the shnai mikra ve'echad targum for the Yom Tov laning. Dakvar kara kol haTorah b'dei Shabbos b'Shabbato, because if you keep up with the mitzvah of Shnai Mikra ve'echad targum every week, so you read the entire Torah over the course of the year. So you don't need to, because you're good to go. You're good to go. You'll catch it. You'll catch the laning of the Yom Tov when it's in the weekly parsha. V'yom Hoshana Rabbah. Okay, so we're on Erev Shmini Atzeres, and again in Eretz Yisrael, that's Erev Simchas Torah, right? So you're about to close out V'zos HaBracha. Yikra Shnai Mikra ve'echad targum parshas V'zos HaBracha. When do you ever do V'zos HaBracha? V'zos HaBracha doesn't fall on a Shabbos unless you live in Israel. Like this year, it will fall on a Shabbos for folks in Eretz Yisrael. But us Chutznikim never lay V'zos HaBracha on a Shabbos. Okay, only in Eretz Yisrael. Shows you, huh? Only in Eretz Yisrael they lay it on a Shabbos. The imkar b'yom shmini atzeres lo hifsid. If you decide, you know what, I'm not going to do it on a Shav Rabbah. I'm a Chutz La'aretz Jew. I have another day. Shmini atzeres. There's not much going on. I'll do my Shnai Mikra for V'zos HaBracha on Shmini atzeres. You're good to go. So that's the one exception where there's a Yom Tov where I do have to read the parsha, because V'zos HaBracha is really a conclusion of the weekly Federal laning. Okay, let's go now to the Ramah, who makes a few different points. Okay, v'chein ein tzarich likros haftaros. You don't need to also, just like you don't have to lean the Yom Tov laying, so you don't have to worry about the haftarah of the week. Okay, the mitzvah is Shnai Mikra. Ve'echad targum is about the parsha of the week that we laid from the Torah. Now, when we call makom nahagu likros haftarah. But the minhag is that you should read over the haftarah too before Shabbos. Okay. By the way, once upon a time, so we had it's really a long time ago, I think now. One of the first 2 years I was here, every Friday night we had a thematic Divrei Torah during that era of Friday nights. So Ramor said, "Why don't you do?" I did almost every Friday. Why don't you do the Haftorah of the week? Say Dvar Torah about the Haftorah. If anybody remembers that. So I used to say a little vort about the Haftorah every week. So I ended up having to read the Haftorah over every week, and it was good. I didn't mind it. It's good to be prepared for the Haftorah. You appreciate also because usually the Haftorah we're so disconnected from the Haftorah texts that it was nice to have to look it over. And the reason for this, says the Mishnah Berurah in Sivkot on Yotes, Tam Haminag, Shema. Now it's not because you should know the text. That's just great. I think that too. But Shema Yikra'u Lamacha Lamaftir. They're gonna go, Richie, you're getting the maftir earlier. And then you'll be like, oh no, big deal. I read this over. I know the Haftorah. Right? So you'll be able to recite it and feel comfortable and confident in it. Masha Ein came a Parshios Shel Yom Tov. Why do we say that you shouldn't at least read over the Yontiv ones too? Maybe you'll get called up to. No, because there, Sheshama Chazan Hukor, there's a Balkorei. The Balkorei always lanes the Torah, so there's usually no surprises on that you have to lane suddenly from the Torah. But we all know, Haftorah, sometimes you get called up, less organized minyanim. You might get called up, you're like, it just happens at team minyan all the time. Who's ready to do it? Oh, not me. So sometimes then, someone steps up or, someone ends up having to do it, forced to do it.
Especially if you're reading from a cloth.
For sure, if you're reading it from a cloth, you need to be prepared. Oh, for sure. Yes, which we did talk. We did give a full treatment to the cloth discussion. Okay, let's go back up on top now. Finish up the Ramah. Uvishabes shel chasana, yikra haftarah shel Shabbos v'lo sos osis. Okay, so on a Shabbos where we're celebrating a wedding. Okay, so we read the Haftorah of that Shabbos, and we don't read the Haftorah of Sos Asis, which has in it the Mishnah. Let's read the Mishnah. We'll point out which the pasuk here. Wrote the Lomar Sheyesh Minhag be'ezem mekomos Shekor Mitzibur. This is sorry, Sifkat on Chaf. Last Sifkat of this siman. Wrote the Lomar Sheyesh Minhag be'ezem mekomos. There's a custom in some communities. Shekorim betzibur levad haftaras hasidra od eza psukim haftaras sos osis. There are some communities when they are celebrating a chastana on the Shabbos, so they read the regular Shabbos haftarah, and then they add a few psukim from sos osis, because there it says mishum dechsiba kechasan yechahen pe'er vegomer, like a chasan yechahen is from the word kohen, like to serve. Right, he will serve like as a glory. So that speaks about the greatness of a groom. Okay, so they want to stick that in there as a way of part of the celebration. Often the chassan was the one who lanes those things, and that's a certain place that's the custom. So since they're going to lane that on Shabbos, so should I also? According to the minhag, should I read that over too? If I know we read the weekly bulletin. Oh, there's a simcha this Shabbos. So and so, is marrying. So what should we do? So the kamash malan devishash shekora la'atzmo haftar. When you're reading it on your own, is it preparation before Shabbos starts? You read haftarah. It's from Yeshayahu. It's from Yechezkel. Wherever it's from. Ein sarach lekros ela hapsukim. You don't be like, oh, the bulletin said this week there's a wedding. So I need to also read over Sos Asis. No. When you're reading on your own, just read the normal Haftorah of that Shabbos. That's what he means. He doesn't mean don't read Sos Asis in the shul. If that's the shul's minhag, to read this special thing for a Shabbat Chatan, then keep reading that. But when you're preparing it on your own, you don't have an obligation, even according to the minhag, to read that over. Why not? Everybody knew it, because if that's the minhag of the shul, and there's a dozen chasnas every year, please God, right? So it's not like it's unfamiliar to you. You hear it all the time. It's like the same way that I've never practiced the laning for Rosh Chodesh like it is today. But if you ask me to step up and lane the Rosh Chodesh laning, I probably could do a decent job because I've heard it so many times. When you hear something frequently, you become accustomed to how it sounds. And therefore, even without reading it over before Shabbos, I'm still going to be a baki in those few psukim. Now, uva arba parshios. What about the daled parshios that we read? A little bit in Chodesh Adar, but mostly in Chodesh Nisan. Mostly in Chodesh Adar. Actually, not in in Adar. I guess one is Erev. One is before Rosh Chodesh Adar, so it goes back into the previous Parsha Shkolim. But anyways, the Yikra Haftarah, the Arba Parshos. So that week, even though you're like, oh, but I'm going to miss out on, no, because there you change the whole Haftorah. So therefore you should read the Dalet Parshos Haftorah. So whatever the regular Haftorah of the week is, read that. If there's an extra addition, we don't, I mean, I don't know, have you ever been to a shul where they add such a thing for a Shabbos? No. Do they do such a thing in the Sephardi community? I'm not, no, okay. So look, obviously this was a minhag in some, at least,
Yesterday we read Machar Chodesh, right?
right, so then you would do Machar Chodesh when you're preparing, because that's the Haftorah. It's not, because you got to be a bucky in it. You need to know your laning. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to say one last word about Shnai Mikra Vecha Targum, and as we say goodbye to Reish Pei Hey. Because I remember my Rebbe, who I told you at the beginning when we started learning this, but Rabbi Weider, who's actually making Aliyah, just finished, gave his last year at YU, a week ago. So yeah, he's making Aliyah, very exciting for the Eretz Israel Jews. So he once, I don't know, he told me, I don't know if it was me personally, probably he tells everybody this, it's the whole shir. And he was like, the Mishnah in Peah, which we read every morning after we do Birchas HaTorah, says, Elu dvarim she'ein lahem shiur. These are the things that don't have a measurement. HaPeah, v'habikurim, v'harayon, v'chasarim, v'talmud Torah. There's no shiur for Talmud Torah. How much Torah do you have to learn every day, right? You read one pasuk. That could be the mitzvah of Talmud. There's no number. That's the same way like in Peah, at the corner of the field. How much of the corner of the field do you have to leave? Midoraisa, there's no number. How many stalks? What percentage? Doesn't say. So same thing with Talmud Torah, right? There's no. He said that the only thing. So Midoraisa, sort of like from the that perspective, there's no like amount you have to learn. But the only Torah that Chazal ever said you have to learn. They never said what to learn, how much to learn, but the only learning Chazal ever said you have to do is Shnai Mikra Vecha Targum. He said it's the only thing Chazal ever said you have to do. So he said there's a certain chashivas to Shnai Mikra Vecha Targum, because again, Chazal didn't decree you have to learn a blot of Gemara a day or a line of Gemara. No, never was that such a thing, but only Shnai Mikra Vecha Targum. So it's a little chizuk for the Shnai Mikra Vecha Targum limud as we move on to the next topic. Yeah, Simeon.
Rob, could you please define Rayon? I don't know what they're referring to. The Peyos, the corner of the field. Habikurim are gifts to a Kadosh Baruch Hu.
Yeah, Rayon is when you're supposed to appear on the Shalosh Regalim in front of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Beis Hamikdash, right? That's the mitzvah of Aliyah L'Regel. I need to actually, right? You have to actually show your face in to Kadosh Baruch Hu, as it were. How long do I have to stay, Simeon? Can I be there for a minute? Kadosh Baruch Hu needs to be. How long does Kadosh Baruch Hu need to see my face? Like, how long does the scan take? How long do I have to be there? How long do I have to hang out in the Beis Hamikdash? There is no shear. I want to be there 5 hours. I can be there 5 minutes. As long as I showed my face in the Beis Hamikdash on the Shalosh Regalim, I fulfilled the mitzvah of Aliyah L'Regel. Right, good. And I'm not supposed to show myself empty-handed. I'm supposed to come with a korban, right? And but I don't have to. But once I'm done, I can leave. Or if you want, you hang out for a long time. There is no shiur on how long I have to be there, right? Many things are defined by shiurim. I have to eat a kazayas of matzah. I have to, in order to violate Yom Kippur, I have to eat a kikoseves hagasa. I'm trying to think of matzah is 18 minutes. There are so many things that have shiurim. There are definitions based on time and quantity. And for these, the ones that are listed in that Mishnah that we read every single day, there is no quantity. And it's about what we want to do to engage and maximize the experience.
Except for Korban Pesach, which has a mandate in it for Achila. And my understanding is Achila must take place in or about Yerushalayim.
100%, but there's a shear there. What's the shear?
You have to eat
the shear is a kazayas. I have to eat a kazayas. How long do I have to show up in the Beis Hamikdash itself? Because you have to go in the Beis Hamikdash. That was Erev Pesach. That doesn't count even for showing up for the Shalosh Regalim. That's a separate problem of Korban Pesach. And not everybody had to go. You had to be on the list. That was attributed to that korban. Somebody had to go and bring it, obviously, but you didn't have to. Not everyone had to be there. But the being present, in the Beis Hamikdash, that was an undefined amount of time. Okay, We move on to Reish Pei Vav, Dine Tfilas Musaf b'Shabbos, the laws of the Musaf Tefillah on Shabbos. All right, Sif Aleph, and if you need there's the one pager over there if you need the one pager. And I don't know if Hinda, I don't know if the last packet that you have has it, or has a drop at the bottom there.
Do you know I found the entire Mishnah Berurah for Shabbos on one of my kids' shelves, and I
Oh,
see what I needed for the next week or two.
Oh, fantastic! All right, they came through for you. Okay, good. All right. Sif Aleph, Zman Tfilas Musaf miyad achar Tfilas Hashachar, ve'ein le'achara yoser me'ad sof sheva shaos. Okay, let's pause right there after that first sentence. The time for the Tefillah of Musaf is immediately after Shachris, and you shouldn't delay it more than until the end of the 7th hour into the day. So if you say we're talking about Sha'os Zmanios here, this is like Maseches Brachos, Maseches Brachos 101, right? That the day is split into 12 equal parts. Shah Zmanis take the amount of time that we call an hour today, we call hours today. Take the time from what we call today sunrise and sunset, if you look it up on the app. Take that, divide it into 12, you get 12 equal parts. That's a Shah Zmanis for today. So, 7 hours into the day is the time when Musaf should be recited by, but really it should be ideally after, right after Shachris. We shouldn't really have breaks. Okay? Let's take a look here at Sif Katan Aleph in the Mishnah Berurah. Achar Tfilas
You're not supposed to have any break anyway. You cannot break the part of the davening, walk away and come back. No, 3 hours later, it's like basically saying, he's not saying leave, come back in 3 hours. I don't know why the 7 hours. I mean, what do you do with 7 hours in the davening?
Well, that may also have to do so a few things. It's hard to imagine having such a problem in our day and age of like, why are you not going to get most of it, by the end of the 7th hour? This becomes much more of an issue. On like the Yom Noraim. That's when you can run into problems. But you're rarely even with that. The question is also, is it the starting? I have to start Musaf by that time, or I have to end Musaf by that time? Because, by the way, we know that on Yom Kippur, Musaf goes past the 7th hour of the day. Just does. By the way, here we're actually pretty good about keeping it close to the 7th hour. But there are places that will schlep it on until 3, 4 in the afternoon, Musaf. And then they'll do mincha right away. They won't even have a break. I shouldn't say schlep. They daven at a different pace. I'll be respectful, actually, because they just daven at a different pace where there's probably, intensity of kavanah. The way that this could also be framed is the following. You could imagine that there are, now I'm speaking with a rabbi hat on now. You could imagine there are multiple minyanim, and maybe you end up starting davening with one minyan, and then you have to go to something else, or I'm going to go to this other place down the street because my friends are davening in this shul, this shtibel, whatever. They're having a kiddush right after Musaf, so you could end up disconnecting Shachris and Musaf. It is possible. It's just not how it's written in the Siddur, so we're not used to disconnecting it. But you could imagine that it could be disconnected, right? That's why, and I think it didn't happen this morning here. But after Shachris, there's a Musaf that day, you're supposed to say Kaddish Tiskabel. After Halal when there's Musaf, so the only time we don't do that is like Hanukkah or Yom HaAtzmaut, when there's no Musaf, right? But you otherwise say Kaddish Tiskabel because that's closing out the tefillah. Shachris is its own tefillah, and we're saying HaKadosh Baruch Hu accept the tefillos of Shachris, that have just been completed, basically. Anyways. So yeah, I mean, look, you're supposed to do it right away. That's why it's written the way it is in the Siddur. But you could imagine there are scenarios where it could be it could go wrong. Right. So that's the Be'er Halacha. Yes. Let's take a look here. Let's read a little bit. So again, Aleph in the Mishnah Berurah. Kamo Karban Musaf Okay, just like the Korban Musaf. You know, the tefillah is tiknu keneged korbanos. So the Korban Musaf was given shizman lechatchila hachar hatamid. Lechatchila, he finished the tamid shel shachar, which is keneged shachris, according to one explanation in the Gemara. So then immediately after the tamid was supposed to be the Korban Musaf. So just like we finish shachris, we go right to Musaf. Really, ideally, it's lechatchila. You shouldn't really have a break in between.
And I assume it also means to start, as opposed to complete.
Yeah, for sure. Yes. The question is, it ideal if it's completed by the end? For sure. You know, that's a question. That's a question by a lot of things that depend on the Zman. You know, if I start Mincha before Shkia, but I end Mincha after Shkia, is that a problem? Or yeah, that's the
Quite
question.
stringent on your own.
Rob?
Like quickly take the tefillin and do it because you don't want to have a sec between Shacharit and Musaf.
Yeah, we'd rather not have a break. You're right, 100%. That's the ideal.
That's why it doesn't fit with what I'm thinking.
Yeah. And you have to pull yourself out of the ideal, like everything was misudar. You know, you have to, as I don't remember who taught me this. Like, halacha and the Gemara deals with cases often that are on the fringe. I was learning about Hilchos, the other day, like laws of Chalav and Tarovis, laws of Kashrus. You learn things about like the most extreme cases, and then you apply the rules to the things that are not as extreme. Because when you're on the limits of the of law, you learn a lot about where the fine lines are, where the how you are magdir certain things. The rush to take off tefillin also has to do a lot with Kabbalah, by the way. I don't want to get into that right now.
For instance,
Yeah.
the earliest time for Mincha is set for Erev Pesach. Because Erev Pesach was such a rush day in the base.
They pushed up the time for the Tamid Shel Ben Arbayim, and also
They pushed it up to 12:30.
Correct.
In Shos Manios.
Yeah.
So if the base of Mikdash was so busy on a day with Musaf, I could see how they would try to get Musaf in before, which is 1 o'clock Shos Manios.
Right.
To leave time for the mincha, that especially if it was like a Rosh Chodesh during the winter.
Yeah.
It would say the Shabbos Rosh Chodesh during the winter, you'd have a very short amount of time to complete all the.
More the people would bring the carbonos that they would eat from.
Yeah, but there's shlamim also, right? There's a lot. There's a lot.
Right,
There's a lot going on.
Right. So
Right.
get to.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I mean,
But
you could bring Musaf all day long.
We're gonna get to that. Yes, it's really it should be by the seventh hour, which reflects the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah and Brachos. Simeon, go ahead.
When Chazal codified and wrote and codified the Tefillot, this was done post Churban Bayis, mostly post Churban Bayis Sheni, and the purpose of the timing is to comport with those korbanos. Hence, for example, the name of the extra prayer that we recite is in lieu of korban musaf, the extra korban.
Yep, 100%, 100%, absolutely. Tfilos tiknu keneged korbanos. Yeah. Okay, so all right. Let's take a look at
even though on Erev Pesach, that's 1 day a year with basically they're so crowded that they said, okay, we could do mincha from like 12:30 shows.
Right, usually the Talmud in the afternoon was brought at 9:30, right? So at 9 hours 30 minutes into the day. Yeah, that's what's called mincha katana.
Mincha katana.
Right, but they pushed it up because of all the extra korbanos traffic.
We allow
Diane,
the early set by that time for 1 day a year when you have to when you really press.
Oh, there it is.
That's how they set the time.
Meeting is now starting live on YouTube.
1 day a year.
Yeah.
And any other day they wouldn't be so pressed.
That's right. 100%. Yeah. Beis in the Mishnah, then we'll come back to the Ber Halacha. Me'ad sof the ikar hazman hakravas hamusaf hayalechatchila ad sof sheva. Again, we're talking about the korban musaf. The lechatchila time that it should be done is the end of the 7th hour, which comports with again Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah in Maseches Brachos. We'll talk about that. You could end up doing it all day long, but that's not the ideal. Ideal is to get it done by the end of the 7th is to do it by the end of the 7th hour. And let's take a look at the Be'er Halacha here for a moment. He writes here, Ayin v'lehushe srad b'simen zev b'mashma mineh da'af shezmana achar tfilas hashachar afim hispal b'hashkama kavasikin. Even the Be'er Halacha. Sorry, that's going to be back on the first page of the siman. So where Reish Pevav began. The asterisk, the Be'er Halacha, where it says miyad. You see that miyad achar tfilas hashachar? Everyone have that? Yeah. See that, Shimon?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You got it, Shlomo? Okay, good. Okay, so he says there that even if you daven hashkama, by the way, sorry to take a little knock at the hashkama in here. Hashkama, come on.
Don't you dare.
Hashkama, he writes here. Af im hispal hashkama kevasikin. Okay, even if you daven hashkama kevasikin. The Vasikin minion here, the daven Vasikin means that you daven Shmona Esrei as the sun rises. Okay, which this time of the year is quite early already. It's going to only get earlier as we continue into the summer.
So how can you say the early ones when it's completely dark?
You absolutely can already at that point, because it's not totally dark at that point. There's already.
You just seen the beginning of the light.
No. That's Alos HaShachar. Vasika is when the tip of the sun comes above the horizon, right? That's when you're davening Vasika. So you actually say Shema a little before then, and then you could daven after Alos HaShachar, all those brachos.
That's when the sun starts to peak. Not even the sun, but the light of the sun peaks across the horizon. Over the horizon.
You're supposed to daven Shmona Esrei. People who did Vasika daven Shmona Esrei just as that starts to happen.
And it's interesting to note that every single day at Kotel Hamaravi, the very first minyan starts Shmona Esrei Alot HaShachar, not the crack of dawn, this beginning of the sunrise. Netzachama, right.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So Mikol Makom, he says here the Be'er Halacha Yoser Tov L'Chatchila Acher. It's a really early to daven, Musaf. I mean, you're talking about.
Dates today is 5:34.
This is a very early Musaf. Why is it too early to daven Musaf? I thought Musaf until the 7th hour. Why can't I just Vasikim in? Okay, so we daven very early, and now we're basically up to Musaf really early in the morning. What's the problem here? And he says, why might you think that you should delay it? The Hakarban Musaf to Shabbos, Amrina Bagamar, Zizman Hakarvaso Hayabashesh. It used to be, when there was a Beis HaMikdash, that historically speaking, that the Hakrava of the Musaf was brought in the 6th hour. And therefore, if we're trying to really, match the tefillah to the historical time of the Korban, even though it was mutter in the morning. But when did it actually happen? Just like it's ideal to daven mincha at mincha ketana, because that was historically speaking the time that the korban tamid of the afternoon was typically brought.
This is the first time you could daven. The first time.
No, that you could daven mincha gedola. You could daven mincha. It's already half an hour after chatzot hayom. The mincha ketana is 9 hours and 30 minutes into the day. It was about the midpoint of the afternoon, approximately, not exactly, but like that was the time that they would daven, not daven, that they would bring the korban tamid every day in the afternoon, and so it's ideal. I don't think most minyanim work like that. I'm sure there are some people who do it like the way that they daven Vasikin and they change the time every day. There are some people out there who do this. That's much more difficult in the afternoon because people work, and to get the minyan together to do that is not so simple.
Rabbi.
Yes, Tommy.
Question. When is Vasikim? I'm looking at the calendar, at the times here. The earliest minyan, like for example here, is at 4:52, but dawn is at 4:18. So when is? How does this work?
Dawn is alot hashachar. Alot hashachar is when the first rays of light come over the horizon, not the sun itself. The Hanei Tzachama is defined by the tip of the sun, the top of the sun, it peaks over the horizon. Therefore, the sun is now visible. That is considered Hanei Tzachama. So it makes sense. Just like after it gets dark and you lose the sun, right, behind the horizon, there's still some light because there's residual light. I think also I'm not an expert in science here, even though my father was a chemist, and I don't know everything about science that I probably should. But I believe that the time it takes for the rays of the light to travel from the sun to the earth is like on a 8, 9, 10-minute delay or something, 8-minute delay. So there's also something probably to that. There's still light that's coming over the horizon. So saving in the morning, that time between Alos and Shachar and Hanei Tzachama is when it starts to get light, but there's no sun visible yet. So you can start to daven. It's lichatchila better to daven Amida following Hanei Tzachama, not to daven earlier, but you can. But it's fine. If you're traveling or some complicated situation, you could daven early as well, but not earlier than dawn.
Talis and
Dawn is the
tefillin
earliest.
you can't put on talis and tefillin.
Talis and tefillin is a time when Mishiyakir Chavero, Dalet Amos. You recognize your friend from the distance of 4 Amos, and it has to be not a friend that's too good a friend that you know everything about them, or not completely unfamiliar to you. That is a time that is after dawn, but before sunset. Before sunrise. When there's enough light that you can see somebody from 6, 7 feet away, and you're like, oh, hey, Shlomo, how you doing?
But
yeah,
Rav, I thought Alota Shachar is really a B'shas the Chak issue.
it's not ideal. You should daven after that. That's for sure. But that's for Shemona Esrei. Everything else was fine to say before that. Okay. So the Be'er Halacha here says that you daven usually at 6. Vatfilos halo hen keneged hakorbanos v'li nira telo mibaya im hatispal shacharis b'tzibur b'vada yenachon shu yischalek mehem v'yispal achar kach musav yichidi. He says it's not right. The people who want to say, "Oh, I'll daven musaf. I'm so frum. I'll daven musaf by myself at the 6th hour by myself as a yachid. I'm not going to daven with the tzibur." He says that's not nachon. That's not. You're going to separate the davening. You're going to, I'm too frum to daven at this time. No. That's not okay. He's like, oh no, don't worry. We're going to have another minyan later for musaf. Come on, he says, ain't kedai. That's not fitting. The mitam zaytir harishon lahaktim tefillas mariv af shalom bizmano kitoch lahakbat lekapsam shenis. This is why we daven mariv oftentimes. He refers to the rush here. So I'm going to go out on a limb here. I didn't look up this rush, but many of the Ashkenazi communities, when they daven mariv, early after mincha, probably around plag hamincha. Not by. That's why there's a whole question. The first Tosfos and Brachos is about how do they say Kriya Shema when it was the light out for the nighttime, and there's a whole back and forth. That's why we did it. Ideal if you repeat the Shema after Teis HaKochavim, but it's clear as daylight. Many of the Ashkenazi communities, they were davening Mariv after Mincha at around Plag HaMincha.
Might not have a minyan later.
Correct. Why? Because exactly, we're not going to gather another minyan later. So he's like, you're so frum that you're going to be like, no, don't worry, we're going to have a second minyan later, in the morning for Musaf. What the Jews who lived in the in the time of the Tosfos and in the Rush, they weren't frum, that they couldn't have thought of the same idea. What are we being motzi lazal rishonim? We're like saying that they didn't try hard enough. That's why there was not such a heter already in the first place to daven. Mariv, it's fine. It's halachically fine, but it's not the ideal situation. Even if you're davening shachris on your own, so you're not with a minyan that Shabbos. Oh, you know what? I daven first thing in the morning. I take a break and I'll do most stuff in the 6 hours. Don't do that. Don't do that. He says, you don't need to be such a stickler exactly like the karbanos. Because if you're delaying your tefillah, you're not enjoying Shabbos. I have to wait. 1 hour. I have to again. No, daven, be benachas, enjoy your meal, enjoy your time with the family, whatever it is. It's also to fast past chatzos. And if you're going to delay davening musaf and I'm not going to eat before then, you probably eat before davening shachris already. He says that's not a great idea. So bottom line is, don't disconnect shachris and musaf. Don't do what I often actually do many Shabbos here, which is I daven shachris in one place and I daven musaf in another minyan. Really, you should try to one after the other. Okay, take a look at Sif Katan. Oh no, we did that. Let's go back to the Shulchan Aruch upstairs. We'll just drop more and then we'll stop. We're just going to get to the end of Aleph, so we're actually quite close. So for me, it's the top line of the next page. I have 128 in the top right-hand corner. If you daven musaf after the 7th hour, you're called a posheya. You're considered a negligent person. Like halacha is like, you're wagging its finger at you like you should have done better, but at the end of the day, you're yotzei, right? You did the mitzvah mipnei shizmana kol hayom. Why? Because if you read the Mishnah carefully in Brachos, in the 4th parak of Brachos, the opening Mishnah, in Tfilas HaShachar, there it says, the Zman of Musaf is kol hayom, and the Rabbi Yehuda Omer ad sheva shos. We paskin like the majority opinion. The majority opinion is that you have all day. Maker hadin. By the way, the same technically goes for Shachris. Shachris is a machlokas between the Tanakama, which is the Chachamim, and the Tanakama and the Rabbi Yehuda. Tanakama says you have until midday, and Rabbi Yehuda says until the 4th hour. We always, when we put Zmanim, when we talk about Zmanim Shachris, we're always referring to Rabbi Yehuda. If there's a circumstance where something happens, you have a fallback option to daven shachar still. You shouldn't lechatchila at all be relying on that. You really should stick to the Zman Tefillah that Rabbi Yehuda sets out. But just know that you have in your back pocket something when something goes wrong. You should not plan at all lechatchila. Like when you write the time for davening, you should never put a davening time ideally for such a situation. I remember one time during COVID when there was all the Yom Noraim during COVID, and it was limited space. And so you had to we rotated minyanim in the tent over there. I remember that Rav Shechter had put out a tshuva. We weren't the only shul that had this problem. You have to, I think it was Rav Shechter put out a tshuva, that technically you have until Chatzos Hayom to daven shachar. If there's such a minyan, there has to be, okay, so it'll be after, but it's not ideal. It's very much not a good situation to be involved with. Let's just. Let me just, Simeon, I want to get to the end here, and then I want to take the questions, if that's okay.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, so, v'im shochach. Okay. V'lo hispal ad she'avar kol zmana. Ein la tashlumin. If you forget to daven musaf the whole day, and suddenly you realize the sun set, and you're sitting at the Shalashudis table, and the young Israel scars there, I didn't daven musaf. So usually when you forget the tefillah, not b'mezid, not on purpose, but b'shogeg you forget a tefillah. You were asuk with something you wanted to daven, and you fell asleep. Something happened that wasn't purpose. I wanted to daven. Something happened, and I just didn't daven. So the halacha is same Mishnah same Gemara right after that same Mishnah in Tfilas HaShachar. You have tashlumin. You can make it up the next zman. So if you miss mincha, you can daven Ma'ariv twice. The Shemona Esrei have Ma'ariv twice. If you miss that, there's no tashlumin after one period. But what if I miss Musaf today? Let's say somebody didn't daven the whole day. They don't daven Musaf today. It's Rosh Chodesh. What happens tonight? They go, okay, do they daven 2 Ma'arivs? And the answer is no. There is no tashlumin for Musaf. A missed Musaf is gone. Okay, there is no tashlumin, even if it was the shogeg. Okay, why not? Take a look at Gimel in the Mishnah Berurah. Sif Katan Gimel ein la tashlumin kevan shenizkar ba korban musaf. The korban musaf ein la tashlumin. The text of the davening, is about the korban itself. Unlike our regular Shemona Esrei that we say in Shachris, I need wisdom. I need forgiveness. I need health. Okay, so I missed that. I'm going to daven it the second time, the next period. The Korban Musaf, the Tfilas Musaf is about the Korban Musaf. If it's already after Rosh Chodesh is over, right? If it's after the time that Musaf is eligible, you can't daven about a korban musaf at a time when the korban is not eligible to be given. So it makes no sense. Therefore, there's no tashlum in Masha Ein Kain Shar Tfilos and Shelo Nizkar B'hem Korban Klal. The regular davening doesn't have mentioned korbanos. So yesh lahen tashlumin. Therefore, there is tashlumin. Kamosh Kasav Siman Kufches. If you want all the laws of tashlumin, you go to Kufches to get more information. But that is why we don't have an opportunity for a makeup on a musaf that is missed. Again, even if it's not missed purposefully. Let's say chas v'shalom person was bedridden in a hospital and they were not able to daven, and then the next day they're feeling like they're up for it. You can't make up a korban musaf. And no one's holding. No one's holding. It's a tefillas musaf. So we're not holding it against you. It's just you can't make it up. Finishing the Shulchan Aruch here. V'yesh ba nesias kapayim. There is the raising of hands. There's a we call birchas kohanim dochanim. Okay, here now comes the big difference. The Sfaradim, even in our shul, in this very room, every Shabbos, if you want to come down here and see it, they duchen every week here. They don't say duchening. The birkat kohanim every week they have here. Every week at Shabbos. We'll talk about what Ashkenazim, in a moment. Another halacha here: if you daven musaf before shachris, why you would do such a thing, I don't know, but you did. You might actually. Why might you think you would do this? There's an obvious scenario here.
You got shul late.
You got the shul late. Should I daven with the tzibur, tefillas musaf, and then I'll go back and I'll make up the shachris? I got there late, so should I daven together? And the answer is actually if the safe cut on hay. I think this is where he discusses it. Okay, Yotza. We'll come back to Dal in a second. Yotza, the korban musaf zmanu mitchilas hayom ad ha'erev. The time for korban musaf is technically from the time that the day starts to the day ends, meaning the lights, meaning so from sunrise to sunset. Ela the asr lahaktim shum korban lechatchila lekorban shachar. You really shouldn't put any korban musaf before korban shal shachar. But if that had happened, they brought the korban musaf before the korban, the talmid in the morning, you're still yotze b'di'evet. Now, in my extra comments number 6 for you, Jeffrey, you can follow along. What happens if you come to shul late and you come there and you can daven with the tzibur musaf, which is the mila to daven with the tzibur, or you could get no tefillos with the tzibur and you'll daven consecutively the way the siddur has it. So Rav Moshe Feinstein in a tshuva. And also, the Minchas Yitzchak takes the same approach here. He says no, daven shachris first. Even though you're going to end up davening musaf now b'yachidus as well. Sorry, next time come on time. You shouldn't change the order. The korbanos go in that order. Don't change the order. But the evidence, it is what it is. But you shouldn't lechatchila do it. But the Be'er Yitzchak says the opposite. He says if you come to shul late, daven musaf with the kehila, b'tzibur v'achakach yispal tfilas shachris. Okay, when you should tefillah b'tzibur, nechshavas yosef mikdushas mitfila b'yachidus. Yes, that davening with the tzibur is a very special opportunity, and you should miss it. And therefore you'll daven shachris after you daven musaf. And then he says that v'hosif she said dafka v'shabbos v'yom tov shegam v'shachris mitpalim rak sheva brachos. Ach b'rosh chodesh, like a day like today, or chol hamoed, yesh leistapek haim yispal shachris tchila kevin du b'shachris mitpal yudches brachos yitochen shelakach nechsheves yosef mikudeshes mitfilas musaf sheyesh b'rak sheva brachos. But maybe on the day like today, there are more brachos. So there's more sanctity to the shachris tamida than there is to the musaf tamida. Maybe then you still would, even according to this approach, you would still daven shachris first, even though you'll miss out on the minyan, on the davening bit tzibur aspect. Last thing, Dalet nesias kapayim v'yesh b'nesias kapayim haynu nosim kapayim b'musaf k'mo b'shachris. You're supposed to lift up your hands. The kohanim do a berachas kohanim in musaf like they do in shachris. V'chanis kaleb b'simen kuf chaf tes, like we mentioned earlier in the Hilchos in Orach Chaim. V'ayin sham in kuf chaf ches if memdalad b'haga. The Ramah, the well-known Ramah amongst us Ashkenazim at the table. The B'chol Medino Seinu Einogin Lisa Kapayim b'Shabbos Klal. We don't duchen at all on Shabbos. We don't duchen at all. Why not? So if you look at the extra comment there, number 5, Jeffrey, right? We Yom Tov Nosim Kabbalah. We dav. Why is the difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov? Why Yom Tov we do duchen, Shabbos we don't? So the Ramah writes Shatam Mishum Shekulam Shriya B'Simchas Yom Tov. We are steeped in Simchas Yom Tov. on Yontif. Masha'en came b'Shabbos shetrudim b'hirhurim al mechiyastam. We are worried on Shabbos all the time about our sort of existential threat about in Chutz La'aretz. Yontif, we can make our mind go away from it, but Shabbos, on Shabbos we're still worried. He says here, not so easy. Life's not so simple in Chutz La'aretz. But ulam haminag be'eretz Yisrael, shu kamo shekasav le'el shenosim kapayim b'chol yom. They're dochening all the time, as my uncle once told me when I was, davening in shul in Netanya, where my uncle lives, and I already dochen in Shachris. It was Mustaf, and again, I was not like Chutz La'aretz Jews. I wasn't accustomed to. And they finished kedusha, and I didn't get up, and he gave me a jab. I remember he gave me a jab from the elbow. He goes, "Bo al kohanim ovdim kasher." He goes, "Here the kohanim work hard." He said, "Go." So anyway, that was on my mom's side. So he wasn't a Kohen, so he was telling me I need to get going. But anyway, so in Eretz Yisrael, you're living the dream, even though there are in some ways existential threats in Eretz Yisrael, but you don't feel it. I guess you don't have it doesn't take away from the.
Listen, you can't go to the Kiddush club before Musaf.
That's right. By the way, is there such a thing as Kiddush club in Eretz Yisrael? He does mention here in the extra comments. He says that I didn't even think I was going to mention this. If you go back to number 2, Jeffrey, right, he talks about what about a shul on Simchas Torah where they are having Kiddush and the people are having alcohol in the middle of davening, right? Which is why we move the Birchas Kohanim up to Shachris in so many communities. Sorry, it was number, where was it? Sorry, it was number 1, the second paragraph, number 1. The Emek Bracha writes, she was Simchas Torah, b'mkomo she'osim kiddush lefnei hakafos, v'shosim harbe u'mishtakrim, ad shekarv hadavar shel yuchlu lichavein klal. Some people are getting so drunk that they don't even know what they're davening, right? Achar kach b'tfilas musaf yesh lamed zchos al hanoagim kin. What did some people do? Those in those communities, they davened Musaf right after Shachris before Kriyas HaTorah. They did Shachris, Musaf, and then Kriyas HaTorah, so that the aliyos were happening afterwards, and all the drunkenness was happening where there was no tefillah to come afterwards. Now, most say that, of course, you shouldn't do such a thing, and it's on everybody to be responsible to not do such a thing. He said that's the lamed zchus al hanoagim. Those communities that do this is why they do it, because they don't want people to be like mishtakrim when they are coming in front of the Kodesh Baruch. Simeon, what was the question? Go ahead.
What you just finished with, it's not a matter of being drunk. Of course, it's a matter of being drunk, but that's not the issue. The issue is when a Kohen went up there to deliver a korban to a Kodesh Baruch Hu, he never imbibed anything. It's not a matter of necessarily just being drunk. It's a matter of respect. It's a matter of kavanah. My question for you was Hallel. The way it's written, the way the Mechaber writes it, Achar Tfilat HaShachar, is Hallel part of Shacharit, or is it after Shacharit? Remembering that Kaddish is recited after Hallel.
Correct, but that Kaddish is the conclusion of the section beforehand, meaning we've just completed Shacharis and Hallel is attached to it. And
so Hallel is
Kaddish,
obviously
it should be a Kaddish to Kabel. I think this morning in our shul, I think we had maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention. I was still saying some tefillah, but anyways, yes, it should be a Kaddish Tiskabel, except if there's no Musaf. Then we postpone this Tiskabel Kaddish to prior to Aleinu.
But ordinarily, Hallel is part of Shacharit.
Yeah, again, if you don't say it in Shachar, you could say it all day long, technically. But yes, we are Kovei Adazman that you should do it immediately following the Amida in Shachris. Yes, that is the time. Yep.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, have a wonderful day. Chag Sameach to everyone, and we'll
Chag
see you next
Sameach.
Sunday. Take care. Chag Sameach.
Okay, take care,
Don't
Rob.
forget to
Thank you,
make.
thank
Don't
you.
forget to make an Eruv Tavshilin.
That's right.
Bye, everyone.
Even in Israel.
Even in Israel this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Enjoy.